Today on the show, join me as we go all the way to Pennsylvania. We're going to sit down with Meaghan, who is a fellow dental professional and the owner of Pearly Whites by Megn. This was such an insightful chat, and it's going to be so helpful because, of course, we touch on the key topics that we typically do with most guests because they usually are the most helpful to hear the same experiences with different outlooks. But a really interesting topic came up in this chat, and it is exactly what you need to be careful when you are doing your business and choosing suppliers. So, Meaghan makes a great point that she found a gel company that she loved, and she was working with it, but then she realized that actually you can buy this gel company online, straight to the consumer as well. So, of course, it's not the same strength as what she was using chairside, but her customers were getting it confused and thinking, well, if I can just buy that online, why would I come and see you? Right? So, great reminder. When you are working with a supply company, make sure that you are exclusive in the sense of they aren't selling direct to the consumer. If they are, it can get confusing. And most importantly, it can make your brand not seem as useful or worthy of the price point you put on it. So, friend, before we dive in, think of Meaghan's favorite quote. Early to bed, early to rise, work like hell, and advertise. Let's get on with the show. If you are a teeth whitening or tooth gem specialist, this is the podcast for you. My name's Rach, and I am the industry leader of all things teeth entrepreneurship. Together, let's learn from real-life experiences to must-have brands on how to take your business to the next level and leave that 9-to-5. Friend, welcome to Whitening Wednesday, and I'm so glad you are here. Let's build a safe industry together. Let's take a moment to thank our sponsor, which is Fern Whitening Supplies. Friend, did you know that Fern has a full selection of interior cosmetic material? That means that Fern is an authorized dealer with Diadent for etch, bond, flow, and composite. If your clinic is looking to lower your anterior cosmetic costs for your direct restorations or lower your costs for your tooth gems, check Fern Whitening Supplies out now at www.fernwhiteningsupplies.ca. Happy Whitening Wednesday. Today on the show, we have Meaghan with us, and Meaghan is a fellow dental professional who is also an entrepreneur, and we're going to chat all the things. So Meaghan, before we even dive into it, I feel like you need to tell us, to start off the theme of this episode, your favorite quote that you think of before you start work.
All right. So to start off, one of my favorite quotes is from Arnold Schwarzenegger, not really somebody puts in their head as another entrepreneur, but he's well known for saying early to bed, early to rise, work like hell, and advertise.
Perfect. And I feel like that is a nutshell of like what you have to do as a solo entrepreneur. It is, regardless if you're in an urban area or a rural. I mean, I know you're in a rural area, which is going to be so exciting to chat about because you really have to advertise. So it is a journey, and that's such a great quote. So tell us, like, when you started in the dental professional field, what made you feel like you needed to do your expanded scope? I can see in Pennsylvania, it looks like it's a little bit more intense than what it's even like here in Ontario. I mean, I don't know if you've heard, but in Ontario, Canada, anyone can be self-initiated. Anyone can be independent. You don't have to do any extra criteria at all anymore. It just passed this year. Wild. As it looks like in Pennsylvania, it's quite the journey. So what made you start the journey to go solo?
So this all kind of started back with the pandemic. I mean, I know we're all sick of hearing about it, but nonetheless, times have changed. Childcare, times a day, schooling, if there's virtual school days. I'm a mom of three. I'm busy and I also love what I do. So by venturing into entrepreneurship dentistry, I'm able to set the hours I want, be there if I need to for my kids. And that's what kind of planted the seed for Pearly Whites by Megn.
I bet. And did you find that when you started, did you envision only doing, say, the quote unquote typical independent hygienist where you are just really technically focusing more so on cleanings? Like, when did all these other scopes or different service offerings like start to come to mind?
So this all kind of also stems to the rural thing, living in a rural area. So in Pennsylvania, I'm a public health dental hygienist. So I have a broader scope of practice, but I still have some legalities that I have to adhere to. I can't actually just go and do cleanings in Pennsylvania.
Really?
No, I can if it's an ambulatory facility. And there's a few other listed in the scope of practice. But so really the only way I could do entrepreneurship is teeth whitening and gemming.
Interesting. That is so wild. So that means that when this came like all together, then your forefront push was whitening and gems. Like that was
Hands
what
down.
that is amazing. So when did you officially start?
So I started in May 2001 being like an official business. The 6 months to a year prior was like family, friends, and building and learning. And then just at the end of this past year, expanded to an LLC. And I ventured into adding services, but non-traditional services. One being, a lot of people have heard telemedicine, telehealth.
Yes.
Definitely new and up and coming in dentistry.
So walk us through that a bit. So since you are a licensed professional, is it pretty much you are given a chance to take on these calls and help walk through different ways to approach what the patient or client calling in is going through?
So there's a couple different ways that I get to do this. Well, first, being public health, I actually do have to go through the credentialing process with the insurance companies. So that's the longest, most annoying part. But once you're past that, I can contract with different hospitals, different dentists in the area that want telehealth support. And then once contracted, I can answer any of their triage appointments. Like if somebody calls and says, like, do I need to come in? I can kind of ask the right questions over the phone to guide them or video. Also chatting, email, texting, you name it. That's how you can reach me.
That is such a smart idea and such a great service to add on top of what you're already doing, because you have that flex time, especially like, you know what it's like when the client's under the light for the whitening, you've got some time, right? So that is such a great service addition. And I know the States is always usually ahead of Canada. And I've seen this more and more in the States. It's slowly coming to Canada, but kind of what you've mentioned with telehealth, but also other remote jobs for dental professionals, like doing account receivables for insurance, or if you are, actually their appointment setter for them, or like recalls, etc. Like there are so many great ways to help be remote staff for not even just dental offices, but like you mentioned, medical offices, physio offices, etc. Their admin staff is so overwhelmed, or they're short staffed in general. Remote staffing is very, very interesting right now. And I think it's here to stay. Is that what you're feeling too?
Absolutely. It's new. It's scary. I have tons of people asking tons of questions because I'm like the first person they've met that kind of got into this. But it is here to stay. It really is, especially with just how the economy is and how things have changed since the pandemic. A lot of people don't want to be going out as much. So sometimes you have a silly question that you maybe don't need to do an office visit and have an office copay for, but you still want the dental advice. So this is a new way, another avenue that's expanded upon to offer that information as well as offer referrals. I do partner with many dentists in the area. So if anything's needed, like a referral, I'm able to give a direct referral to them.
Amazing. That is so good. So great service addition on top of whitening and gems. So let's dive into whitening and gems. So when you were in office, like back in the day, probably feels like forever ago now, did you work chairside whitening very much, or were you in the typical offices where chairside whitening was the least of their concerns? If they offered it, they rarely did. Were you at an office that was like all the time or nothing?
No, initially early in my career, it was nothing. About 8 years into my career, I started having the occasional whitening. And then the last year I worked full time. That one, I did do more whitenings. I'd say one a month, which I think is a high rate.
For an office? Yes.
Yes. So I did do that. That's kind of where I learned I really like this. It's that immediate gratification, just like a hygienist. Like if there is, man, a lot of tartar going on, we feel great afterwards. So it's definitely, a passion of mine is that making the smile beautiful, boosting that confidence and applying that vanity.
Yes. And plus, whitening is such a quote unquote easier service for you compared to everything else that you would have been doing in the day, right? Like it gives you a little bit of a break. You get to get caught up on notes or whatever else is going on. Like it's just such an easy service. And usually your patient is a lot more, you could say, happier with you because you are not typically causing discomfort or, you're doing something that's good for them, but they're not getting that visual or that instant, as you mentioned, result that then puts them with that value feeling of, hey, like I got value from this. They don't really feel like they got value from a cleaning, right?
Right. I mean, it's more valuable than
right.
But exactly. It's the patient's, mindset leaving the practice is how different do things look? So the more different they appear, the better off they are happy.
So that's great that you had some chairside experience with the whitening materials. So when you decided to venture out on your own, did you stick with that brand that you maybe were working with chairside? Or did you like free for all go and try like every brand you could find?
So that's actually an interesting one. I have changed it from where I started to where I am. In the sense, I Glow Science Professional, hands down, my favorite company. Go ahead.
I was going to say, they are very interesting. They seem to be growing very popular in the United States. Like it definitely hasn't hit Canada, but I've been following them and a lot of dental professionals using, and I have heard good things. So did you get approached by a rep or did you just stumble across their page? How did you find them?
That was the whitening that was chosen at the office I had been working at. And I just loved the mobility aspect of it. It's small, it's compact, and it's a fraction of the whitening time with the same results, if not better. I really loved it. So when I decided to step out, it was kind of like a no-brainer. I already had a rep that I was acquainted with and, had a good reputation with. However, though, over that next year, I started realizing I had a lot of clients question the product. Maybe because of its name.
Really?
Yes. So Glow, unfortunately, is a lot of people have made a generic version of.
Okay.
If you just Google or Amazon Glow Science Professional, a half a dozen generics come up that are not the product I'm using as a dental professional. But the client thinks and doesn't understand the differences between the chairside whitening, take-home whitening, what the difference is. So I have had people reach and say, hey, didn't you get that on Amazon?
Oh, no.
No, let me show you my receipt. Let me get my rep on the line, and try to put their mind at ease. But it's happened more than 3 times.
Crazy. And what you want to say is believe me, I've paid 3 times more than what you would have paid for that Amazon box. It is definitely different. That's got to be frustrating for them as a company, especially because I know they're trying to grow right now. They are, I don't want to say newer, but they are newer in the span compared to say Zoom, Bola, etc. Like they definitely are newer to the market. So that is a great example though for anyone that's listening that if you are, for example, bringing on retail products, make sure whatever you're selling cannot be picked up and purchased elsewhere, because that's a great example of, hey, if say you're selling the Blue Smiles kit and you can go on Amazon and buy that Blue Smiles kit, then why would they purchase it from you? Or why would they come back and purchase it from you? They're just going to go online, right? So even though it's slightly different since like you're like, hey, no, this is chairside, that's take home. Just a great example though, if you are doing retail, be really careful with your suppliers that they're not double dipping. A lot do.
Yes.
And it can be very, very frustrating.
That is definitely something too that is important to pay attention to. Watch the pricing of the units. How many patients can you get from one package? Yes, because there can be a little double dipping or overselling happening.
Exactly. There was this one thing that happened during COVID, quick little side tangent, but a great example again to really make sure that whatever company you're working for is there to support you, not their margins at the end of the day. So it was this skincare company that only sold through businesses. So like say Pearly Whites by Megn, you could only purchase this skincare brand through other providers. You couldn't buy it direct from the consumer. Or like you as a consumer couldn't go and buy it direct. You had to find a professional who carried it. COVID hit, that company started selling direct to the consumer, which then those businesses, they weren't able to do their chairside services. So they needed that retail sale. And now the customer could bypass them altogether and just go straight online to the product. So it's really, we don't think about it when we're doing all these things and we're starting up and we're so excited about products, but really pay attention to the client journey. How can the client buy that product? Because if you're not the only way that they can get that product, hate to say it, friend, they're not going to buy it from you again, right? Unless it's like by chance, like they're already with you. But you're going to miss out on a lot of retail sales if you don't have an exclusive avenue.
Exactly. Absolutely. And like having the retail, it's nice for the add-ons because again, I'm in a rural area. So my clientele is a lot lower than somebody who's maybe in Philadelphia or New York City. So adding the retail option, whether I did like the pens to those are
handy.
it, which are nice. Just I recommend paying attention to how you're selling them because you don't want people to buy just the pens, but it's great for touching up in between. As well as I offer a take-home kit with the chairside whitening as an add-on option if they want to take a unit home to take care of their teeth in between appointments.
Which is the ultimate way to get results, right? Like that is the best way. And I love that you mentioned this. I don't know why I never thought of this either when we had our studio, but offering a discount on those kits while they're there in the service, like being like, hey, this is discounted if you grab it right now. But as soon as your appointment day is over, like it's back to full price. Right. So do you notice that does get you extra sales?
Hands down. So initially in my career, I didn't change any prices. Like if I set something or I had a promo going, that just is what it is. The more flexible I became, the better my career got. So being willing to do exactly that, take the financial hit, if you will, the discount, but I'm already with the patient. I'm already trying to win them over and I'm trying to make them have a wonderful experience. So if I can say, hey, this product normally goes for $40, but while you're here today, I can take $10 off just because it's today and you're here.
Yeah.
Hey, anything to save a buck.
Absolutely. Right. Mm-hmm. And there's lots of statistics that show that like impulse buying, right? Like you need to tap into that. I know it can be so hard for us as service providers to turn on that sales brain, but friend, you're running a business, right? You don't want it to be an expensive hobby. You want it to be a revenue source for actually making money. So that is such a great tip. I love that. That's so good.
One of the things you just said reminded me of another tip I would recommend to newbies starting up here with entrepreneurship is you are trying to make a business. You are trying to turn a profit. It's a different mindset from the provider to the sales side, like you said. But don't be over giving. There's, yes, a friends and
So
family
good.
in the beginning.
Yes.
But let's say your aunt you haven't talked to in 9 years wants to come and get a whitening for free. No. Okay. It's finding the tactful way to say, oh, no, I can't do that. I already have my models I needed or whatever
Yes.
way you come up, but don't allow yourself to be abused by people that actually love and care for you.
Exactly. That is a great reminder. And it's definitely that awkward phase that I think anyone starting a business has to roll through. Or like, the friend that maybe you went to high school with that you're like awkward, like, oh, should I give them a discount? Like we don't talk, but like they're here. Like we really need to remove that emotion to your business and just be the business provider. I know it's easier said than done, but great tip to remember not to discount yourself for everybody. Because another thing that I feel like, especially as you mentioned with everything that's been changing over the past few years, is it is very, very expensive to run a business.
It really is. It's shocking. Now, whitening, it's fantastic to have a low overhead as it is, especially if you're, mobile or ambulatory. But yes, that becomes a huge factor since the pandemic.
Right. And it's one of those things I think where like we see our cost of, let's say, our products and we think, oh, wow, like that's really not that much. I don't need to charge that much. But we're forgetting to factor in all of the other things that you need to pay for in your business, right? Including your valued time and yourself. So I know that you had mentioned, when it comes to pricing, pay attention to your competitors, but at the same time, do also be very true to yourself. And again, don't undercut. So have you found that being in the rural area, when you started your pricing, did you kind of start with the price just kind of on a whim? Or did you have a strict calculation that you're like, no, this is what's going to cover my bills? Or did you just kind of start with the price and then you've adjusted from there?
I have done adjustments, but very little actually. So when I was using the glow in office, when I stepped out, I wanted to be cheaper than the dental office, but I didn't want to cheapen my service. I'm still a dental professional. I'm not, a mall kiosk here or a salon. So I priced out what those companies were doing. And I wanted to be higher than that, but lower than dentistry. So I ended up finding a middle ground. And then over the next 6 months, depending on how I was closing deals, I kind of got the feel for if I needed to lower the price or raise the price from there.
That is a great model because it's right. You are floating in the middle where you have that background. You need to charge for your service, but at the same time, then you have to think about, okay, but I'm not in that dental office anymore because that's really where you can charge it, right? It's just that chair. If you could just
the room,
right? Literally. So that's a great tip. So right away, did you start with gems or did you fold in gems once maybe people started asking for them?
So gems started right off in the beginning as well, because I had over the years prior had patients coming in with the occasional gem. But they were only getting them from what I understood in major cities at expos, at different things. And you know what? I wanted one. I was going away on a 2-week vacation. And I said, why not? Let me go get a Swarovski crystal here and put it on. So it started with me playing with my own teeth and then ventured onto friendly typodonts, decorating in my friend's teeth. And it just kind of popped right up. That price I've raised and lowered based upon what I'm doing and how things are going.
Yeah, gems are a really hard one to price, right? Because they're a very quick service to do, but then at the same time, it's like, okay, it's like braces, like this could come off tomorrow, right? Like it's so tricky. And then especially with good old TikTok, these crazy designs, right? Like these advanced designs, like if you're going to do that, JK, you're actually going to need a lot of chair time.
Yeah.
And it's a very, very hard one to price. So do you find that it's kind of like a ripple effect with gems where like you'll have a month where you'll do a few and then it'll like all happen at once and then it'll kind of die off? Or do you find that gems are becoming more asked for than whitening?
I definitely so far fall in that cycle of I kind of get a few clients coming in, loving them, and then I get a dry spell for a period of time. I found the gems seem to move better at like vendor shows.
Yeah, for sure.
If I have one on, or I have a couple like images of different things that I've done on patients' teeth, because they're there on site and can see it, I think it's easier. But I also at vending shows usually reduce my price just a little bit to help close off some deals. So is it the price? Could be.
That is, again, that instant sale, right? You're like, you know what, let's just get this on now. But that is a great, great tip. And I feel like a lot of providers probably feel the same way with gems. It is definitely a popular service, but it will be interesting to see if gems stay on as more of a fad or if they stay heavy in the industry. It will be interesting to see. So Meaghan, tell us, what are some tips or advice, etc., you would have for either a newbie in the entrepreneurial world with teeth whitening and tooth gems or a seasoned professional? What's one thing that you really wish you knew before starting your teeth whitening and tooth gem business?
Oh, there were a couple things I wish I knew going into it. But first tip I wish I would have known right from the get-go is how important it was going to be for me to learn the verbiage of what I'm allowed to do. Because I was really shocked in my first, I'd say, year and a half of being official, not that early days. I actually had some colleagues that I deemed as my friends, and I got some pushback. I really did. I got pushback from some dentists who I had, temped for in the past. And I needed to be confident and I needed to assert myself in a non-aggressive way. Just I needed to know, hey, no, in Pennsylvania, my scope of practice, this is, and then I could just kind of rattle it off like a book. And it shut down the questions and it allowed me to remain calm too, instead of taking things personal. Like,
That's huge. I had the same experience where when I started kind of talking about it at the dental office that I was at, they, were giving me the side eyes and, oh, you can't do that. Or, it was just like dominoes. And then you kind of stop mentioning it or you slow your progress down because you're like, oh, well, that person's been in the field for so long. They would know more than I would know. But really at the end of the day, they just never actually really looked into it. So at the end of the day, you have to be your own advocate, right?
Yes, absolutely. And just by doing the homework in advance, it just prepares you for the potential questions that can come your way. And hopefully you never have to deal with them. You had said in Ontario, things are very much easier, shall I say, than Pennsylvania.
So much.
So Pennsylvania is actually pushing to do the exact opposite of what Ontario did and wants to shut down hygiene from doing any independence. So there's a lot of lobbying that goes on here. I'm not far from Harrisburg and I try to, stay looped in, but there is a really heavy push in the Northeast for that to just be a dentist job and that the public health shouldn't cross over. But then I wonder, when was the last time a dentist physically sat there and whitened your teeth?
Literally.
Because I've never seen a dentist do it.
Right? And then that's a great pushback of, okay, if you want to shut down this, then goodbye dentistry whitening, because guess what's going to take over tremendously is spa whitening. It's going to just go off, right? Because if you're going to lose that background, then dentists aren't going to do it. And then that's going to be the only avenue. So they kind of are pushing against themselves, right?
Exactly. One hand shakes the other hand and doesn't realize what's going on behind the back.
Exactly. Oh, good old politics. Oh, too good. Well, Meaghan, this was so great. This is going to be so helpful. I know our audience is going to love hearing your tips and tricks, and they're going to want to follow you. So tell us, where's the best place to follow along with your journey?
So following my journey, I primarily use Facebook. I do post my images before, after promos on Instagram and TikTok, but that has just been what took off for my primary avenue. It's been easy for advertising. I can kind of handle in the metaverse, doing a mass advertising across the platforms. It's not my favorite thing to do, but you got to advertise if it's not brick and mortar. So
Literally.
that's, I would definitely say follow me on Facebook at Pearly Whites by Megn. And I can answer questions on there. I have other services listed on there, anything you like.
Amazing. Well, Meaghan, thank you so much. And those of you who are listening, thanks for listening to another episode of Whitening Wednesday.